Hey, you guys. Tonight I wanted to talk to you about what rock bottom means. And is it really rock bottom or is it a misery threshold? And so I want to talk through that and get your thoughts on that. So my name is Sally Harris, for those of you that are new here, and I help desperate moms of struggling adult children. I help the moms regain their own life back in the midst of the crisis. That's a path that I walked for over 10 years. And so my passion is to help other moms regain their own life back much faster than I did. So I will put a link to my discovery call below. And if you're a mom that has a defiant or struggling adult child, I would love to talk to you. So let's dive into this. I am just curious. I'm sure you've heard of the term rock bottom. And I believe that's a term that was actually started through AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, basically saying that until you hit rock bottom, you aren't going to change. You're not going to quit your alcohol or drug. So I like to call it a misery threshold. This is experience that I have first-hand knowledge with. As some of you know, I've been sober for 4.5 years from alcohol, and the journey was not a fun one. And so for you moms that are out there having, whether this is for yourself or your child, I just want you to take note of a few things, because I think with rock bottom, you know, when you say rock bottom, you think, okay, you fell into this pit and there's no lower place to go. Like, that's rock bottom. You can't get any worse. And the pain is so bad that is going to just motivate you to change. And in a perfect world, wouldn't that be awesome? But at the end of the day, I think you and I both know that whether it's you or your child or someone else you love, when it comes to quitting a drug or alcohol, and if they're not ready, they're not going to make the change. Just because you hit rock bottom, it looks different for everybody. We may have a really good concept in our mind, like that person spent time in prison. That person has lost their job. That person got in a car accident, got a DUI. That should be rock bottom. At the end of the day, sometimes it is and sometimes it's not. So, as far as, you know, when addicts do say that, I still have my family and friends. I haven't gotten that DUI. I didn't harm anyone, all of that, but yet they're drinking and driving, you know, they have not hit that rock bottom. So if a person needs to hit rock bottom before they'll do anything, then wouldn't we all be changing when that happened? And we're not, right? So what if you replaced it with misery threshold? Because just like we all have different pain thresholds, we all have different misery thresholds. Some people can tolerate a lot of pain, you know, natural childbirth, the whole 9 yards, and other people can't handle getting, you know, a shot. So everybody's different. So I think the bottom line is that we need to find the connection, and it's different for everyone, the connection between their use and their misery. So there has to be enough misery for that person to engulf some change. So some people can tolerate the suffering for long periods of time. So they may still have some of these attributes where you're thinking, oh, my child is at rock bottom. They're going to be getting better. But at the end of the day, they might have hit one of those thresholds or one of those things that you think is rock bottom, but they haven't sat in it long enough. So, and depending on the drug that they're using, if your child is an addict, that too obviously leads to misery. Some of the drugs lead to misery much faster than others. So that, you know, this is not even talking about having to break the addiction itself. This is about wanting to facilitate change. Breaking the addiction itself is a whole nother story. But wanting to change and having that desire to change comes first and foremost for any of it. And many people stop the drug use before we lose our job, before we lose our families, and our dreams for the future, right? So when we cross that misery threshold, too often we're just not comfortable, and that is enough for change. So not comfortable enough, right? So for me, when I was drinking, I would drink from the time I got home from work until the time I went to bed every day. And I knew there was a pattern. I knew there was an issue. And there were times where I tried to change. I would try to stop, and I couldn't do it on my own. And it wasn't until I had a health issue. And when I someone else could get a diagnosis like I did, and they could just go home and keep on drinking. That was the last day I ever had a drop of alcohol, because that was enough for me. That was scary enough for me. And what's scary enough for me might not be scary enough for someone else. But that was enough for me. So everyone is going to be different, but just keeping an eye on the misery threshold for your child or for yourself. And basically, don't wait for rock bottom, because I don't believe that everyone has to hit it. So I just think that's a better way of looking at it versus, versus just rock bottom. Like there's nowhere up, nowhere to go but up, all of that. Really the misery factor, which also hugely plays into when we talk about not enabling our kids. We're upping the misery factor for them. The more we keep them comfortable by enabling them, the less misery factor they're going to have, which means you're making it comfortable, so why should they change? So that's another good reason why we need those boundaries and why we need to not be enabling. So I hope that helps somebody tonight, and I will talk to you soon. Have a good evening.